Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Ready?
Yep. Let's go. Let's laugh. We are imperfect after all.
Okay.
Hello and welcome to the Imperfect Us podcast.
I'm Leanne Camilleri.
And I'm Lisa Downs. As hosts of the Imperfect Us podcast, we share relatable stories that celebrate we are all perfectly imperfect humans leading perfectly imperfect lives. We discover practical and evidence-based strategies that draw on the science of wellbeing and positive psychology that help us to uncover the barriers that might hold us back from being our authentic selves and turn them into opportunities so that we can show up more consistently, doing what we really aspire to do and who we want to be.
We acknowledge the Wadawurrung and the Kaurna people as traditional custodians of the beautiful lands on which this podcast is being recorded. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend this respect to other First Nations people who are here with us today. So, let's get started.
Today, we are speaking with Ros Ben-Moshe. Ros is a laughter, wellbeing and positivity author and academic. She is adjunct lecturer at the School of Public Health and Psychology at Latrobe University and coordinator of a world-first laughter, resilience and wellbeing online short course for professionals. Ros is the author of The Laughter Effect, How to Build Joy, Resilience and Positivity in Your Life, and Laughing at Cancer, How to Heal with Love, Laughter and Mindfulness. Often called on for her expert opinion in mainstream media, she is a regular on the airwaves and has written for many publications including the Canberra Times, Huffington Post and Herald Sun. Ros, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Ros, we're really excited to be speaking to you today, and we are curious to understand what is laughter therapy?
Yes, it is a good question. Well, there are a couple of types of laughter therapy. So I'm not even going to be talking about, just laughter amongst friends. The two main types of laughter therapy where there is research are humor-based laughter therapies and non-humor-based laughter therapies. So I'll give you an example of a humor-based laughter therapy would be getting people to watch a comedy, a sitcom or listen to something funny and then, measure a sort of, the physiological impact that might have. So you're relying on the humor to kick in and someone to laugh. Back in the mid-1990s, in 1995, there was a whole new kid on the block called laughter yoga. And this was introduced by an Indian doctor called Madan Kataria, who was researching about laughter being the best medicine and thought, well, he could do with some of that. So he literally almost to the day, 29 years ago, he got together with a group of 5 friends and they met in a park in Mumbai and they told jokes. And they laughed and laughed and they decided they had such fun. They decided to meet the next day and the group swelled in numbers and the jokes grew and they decided this was just fantastic. They'd figured it out. This is the best type of laughter therapy. But as you can probably imagine, what started to happen by the end of the week was the jokes started to run out. And what one person found funny, another person didn't, and it just sort of went over their head or they found it offensive. So he went back to the drawing board and he discussed it with his wife, Madhuri, who was a seasoned yogi. And she made the observation that, laughter is like breath work. You can't laugh without breathing. So he also had been taken by a book that he'd been reading that talked about this idea of acting as if you are happy to be happy. So he and his wife essentially devised what has now evolved into laughter yoga, which is simulated laughter exercises like a greeting laugh, it would have been namaste back then, in a group scenario, together with pranayamic deep breathing and clapping while chanting ho, ho, ha, ha, ha. And this repetitive action of simulated laughter exercises, deep breathing and clapping ended up being the formula that has become known as laughter yoga. And it has now ballooned into, tens of thousands of, laughter yoga clubs worldwide. And this form of laughter, and your listeners can't see me wrapping around inverted commas around therapy, because it's therapy can be a bit of a loaded word. But this type of laughter practice enables people to be able to get the benefits of laughter without necessarily feeling like laughter at the time. So it's a really great practice to introduce to vulnerable populations, to people, undergoing health challenges or going through a challenging time in your life. You don't wait, in order to be happy to laugh. You laugh in order to be happy. And what both these humour and non-humour based laughter therapies do is they tap into a range of sort of physiological health benefits and give, what I sort of refer to as our dose of well-being. That's dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. So they're both really valuable. The distinct, as well as being introduce it to, populations that don't love, don't necessarily feel like laughing, you can control the amount of laughter that you are actually dishing out. So, you can, with a 30-minute laughter yoga session, say, for example, you will have 10 laughs, and that will be equivalent to, say, 10 minutes, as opposed to sitting someone in front of a Seinfeld video and them maybe laughing, maybe not. So it's actually shown to have even greater health benefits than relying on humour. But both are very, very, potent.
Wow. And laughter is quite contagious, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And that's, we could start a bit of a laughter contagion happening right now. Yes, so laughter is very contagious. So we need to hear laughter and we need to see laughter in order for that contagion to happen. So LOL, like in a text message, just is not going to have the same benefit. And one of the things that's actually going on in our brain is when I smile or when I laugh, I'm actually activating mirror neurons. And when I'm smiling or laughing at you, your mirror neurons are starting to fire and wire. And when we smile and laugh together, we get this fabulous exchange. And it's just like, if someone's yawning, that can be contagious. It's the same principle with smiling and laughter, but a lot more fun.
And of course, laughter is so important for our positive emotion, isn't it? You talked about the dose, like even when we feel good, we're going to be feeling better about the world and ourselves, for sure.
That's right. And that's where the challenge comes in, that we don't want to leave laughter or feel good, positive emotions to chance. So as I say, we don't want to wait for those blue sky, everything's going well in your world days in order to feel, positive, to feel good, to feel joy. We actually need to seize the moment and take control over, for example, if we've had a stressful day in the office or at home with the kids or whatever it is, rather than putting on the news and sort of hearing more doom and gloom and sort of feeling more and more disgruntled with the world, why not instead cheer scroll? Choose some uplifting content to browse. Choose to speak to a friend or colleague that uplifts you rather than, puts, you down or makes you think about, things that perhaps you don't really, want to hear about. Or, tuning into an uplifting podcast such as this. So, there are many things that we can do to actually change the way we feel. And, positivity is a doing word. We can't just think it, we need to do it. And laughter and smiling and humour and gratitude, a lot of those sorts of related things are instantaneous ways in which we can change the way we feel. It actually, creates this physiological response where, hormones of well-being are released. And it's literally instantaneous. It's amazing. You can't smile and frown at the same time. You know, when you're laughing, for example, you're very much anchored into that present moment of joy. You're not thinking about, you know, the stresses that you've just left or what, you know, you're worried about, you know, that's going to happen when you know, get back home. So as sophisticated as we think we are in our brains, we can only actually inhabit one sort of emotional mindset at the same time. And it's either going to be positive or negative. And to a very large extent, the choice is ours.
I love how you put that positivity into the context of a you know, of doing. I've not actually considered it that way before. I really love that.
Well, I think it's really important because this is going to sound a bit ironic, but the word positive, it actually has a lot of negative connotations. It's like, you know, if someone's going through a challenging time and, you know, someone just says, oh, just, you know, just think positive. Or they say, you know, I'm trying to think positive. Well, thinking just does not do the work. It can actually lead to this feeling of toxic insincerity, not being able to sort of match up with the emotional state you want to be in. You have to do positive. You have to transform that mindset. Gratitude, for example, you know, a gratitude practice, thinking about something, you know, that has gone well in your day. Because in that moment, you're not thinking about all of the crap that might not have.
Yeah.
And I like to talk about, in terms of, you know, creating a positive or a laughter mindset, it is about the micro moments. It's about those little moments, especially when we're going through challenging times. It's not going to be about getting excited about the huge overseas trip or the marriage or the, you know, it's going to be more about, hey, I had a really lovely conversation with Leanne today. Or, gee, Lisa and I had such a lovely walk. Or, you know, even coming back to the real basics, you know, I've worked with a lot of people with a lot of issues over the years. It can be something as basic as being grateful for the hot water coming out of the faucet and, you know, having a warm shower. If you can't think of anything else, even that alone. And where that sort of idea of the laughter mindset or the laughter effect can change something like that mini gratitude practice is that, you know, you will be in that state long enough for you to be able to smile into it, for you to be able to really pause and absorb into that feel-good state rather than just sort of, you know, taking it for granted.
Yeah. I was just thinking before, and I've just connected the contagion theory with the laughter. And I was thinking about last night, of all things, my son and my husband and I were watching this silly show. And there was one part in the show where one person really became the person that was actually amplifying other people. And it was just hilarious. And all of us just burst into laughter. And of course, then none of us could stop. You know, when you get to that point where you just can't breathe.
Yes.
It was beautiful. And we had tears of laughter and happiness. It was just beautiful. But I thought about how that contagion process is so important as well.
Well, that's right. And, you know, laughter is greedy for company. So, you know, I know, and it's research that, you know, I've read about and conducted that you know, we laugh more when we are in company. So if you were watching that, you know, silly program by yourself, I can almost guarantee that you would not have generated as much laughter, certainly not to the point you were crying. You might like you have, but generally, you know, our laughter is enhanced by others.
Yeah, absolutely. And Liam and I laugh all the time at each other.
That's very healing. It's a wonderful thing. You know, laughter and humour have been used to heal and connect individuals and societies since day dot. And, you know, it's a very innate resource that we've been blessed with. You know, we ha 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 before we da 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 or ma ma ma. But, you know, often what happens is that when life gets stressful, life gets busy, laughter and, you know, often those feel-good emotions are some of the first things that actually, you know, depart. So those moments that you just described are just gold.
And they're just so uplifting. And it's, you know, just a beautiful way. Actually, we were talking about it before we all went to bed, and we're just saying, oh, I'm just going to sleep so well tonight because of that real emotion together. And I can tell you, it was just, I wish in some respects I had videoed it to remember. You know, like on social media, we've got all these gorgeous clips. That would have been priceless. Yeah. Now, I'm just thinking about the next question. I think we may have talked about it, so we'll just go through and see how we go. But it has been said that laughter is the best medicine. And we're just wondering, how does laughter influence our ability to thrive?
It's a great question, and I love how you've used the word thrive rather than survive. Mm-hmm. So, you know, a lot happens, you know, physiologically when we laugh. So there's the physiological health benefits that I'll discuss, and then I'll discuss some of the sort of psychological health benefits. So just briefly, you know, the more we laugh, the more we breathe. You know, we all know the benefits of aerobic exercise. It helps stimulate the lymphatic system, and there's the lymphatic pump within our body. So the more we laugh, the more that lymphatic system is actually manipulated. It helps, just like in exercise, you know, blood pressure tends to, you know, go up and then it drops back down. So it's really good for heart rate. And, you know, often if I'll run a laughter yoga session, you know, people might start off feeling a little cool, but, you know, in no time at all, they'll be stripping right down. And as I sort of alluded to before, there's been research that's shown that laughter in the brain has a very similar effect to meditation. So when we laugh, gamma healing waves are actually released in both hemispheres of the brain. So we're very much anchored into this present moment of joy. And, you know, it's you know, it gets our abdominal muscles moving. But it's also in terms of, you know, the major research, there's been a lot of research that's shown that it has a very optimal impact on people, you know, who have experienced depression and anxiety. And there's been some research that has suggested that a laughter yoga program has actually been more successful in terms of, you know, reducing anxiety than medication. It was an Iranian study that demonstrated that. Now, I say that with a big caveat that please, if anybody here is on particular medication, I'm not suggesting that you throw it out. It's just that, you know, it just demonstrates that laughter, because it taps into this dose of well-being, you know, for example, endorphins, which is our pain management system, laughter is very effective in reducing pain, and that's both physical and physiological. And then, you know, in terms of, you know, us thriving, you know, when we connect, you know, with someone, one of the shortest distances that's going to happen is when we smile or laugh with one another. It really helps to create a sense of ease, connection, and hey, you know, life ain't too bad. You know, if you can share a laugh or a smile with someone, especially, you know, an authentic one, it doesn't matter whether they were a stranger 5 minutes before, you have built a bridge of connection. So you can understand why a society that has more sharing of smiling and laughter is more likely to be a thriving society rather than a society that sort of, you know, the societal norms are that you don't meet someone in the eye, you don't smile at people, you know, because that actually feeds into our stress hormones, cortisol. It makes us feel unsafe. We don't have that connection. So it's a really basic, as I say, resource that we have that does help us thrive at an individual and a collective level.
Love that.
Thank you. Yeah.
There's a quote I've heard, and I hope I get it right. Fabulous is when someone's laugh is funnier than the joke.
Ooh, I like that.
And when I think about what you've just said, one, I think about I've got babies in my life at the moment, and you can, the funny things that you can laugh at, the funny things that you find yourself doing as well to make it a little person laugh is funny in itself. But we don't speak a language yet to communicate well. They're only young, but we get each other with our laughter.
Yes, it's a fundamental thing that we've been given in order to connect to our caregivers. That's why, infants have got this life skill or laugh skill. And the reality is that adults often sort of, succumb to seriosity. So when we're in a room with kids or our pets, it's reconnecting to our inner child, to that sort of more unleashed sense of play and fun and joy, where judgment of, oh my gosh, I'm being a bit silly, what will people think of me, I better not laugh, doesn't exist. And we need to create those moments. It really helps us thrive.
Roz, it reminds me a little bit of the broaden and build theory.
Oh, absolutely.
The more we're doing that, we're just making such richer connections to other people, like you've said, and it's such an easy, quick way. Even with our pets, I noticed the same thing when that laughter and that it's in your eyes as well. It just makes such a difference.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that theory, Professor Barbara Fredrickson's broaden and build theory, because the laughter effect, what I've come to call the laughter effect, is not just about laughing, ha, ha, ha. It's also about being able to reframe things with levity, to be able to view some of our challenges, find the light, find something that you might be able to laugh about or find, mildly amusing, either in the present moment or even in the future moment. So it really helps us navigate adversity, building up this skill set to be able to, rather than sort of immediately sort of go into worst case scenario, woe is me, it actually helps us to really develop neural pathways towards, positivity, towards joy, towards levity. So it's really, as I say, it really is very much a life skill that, I know deserves a lot of serious attention.
Absolutely.
You've already touched on some really great research. We're curious to hear about some of the research and what it's found in terms of positively impacting our well-being.
Sure. So essentially, when it comes to laughter as therapy has been used, as I say, sort of incidentally and intuitively for centuries. Even looking back to the medieval age and the court jesters, they were often the first port of call. Queen Elizabeth I, got her court jester in before she got in her medical practitioner. And laughter as therapy and laughter research really only started in the early 1980s, and it was all humor based, and the main sort of research was around immunity and pain, and also sleep. So one of the people that Norman Cousins, who wrote The Anatomy of Illness, he was one of the first people to experiment with laughter as therapy in the modern era. And he had a crippling diagnosis, and all hope was lost. He was in hospital in so much pain. And rather than give in, he essentially checked himself out of hospital with his doctor's blessing to a nearby hotel and administered, doses of Marx Brothers and Candid Camera, and essentially laughed himself back to enough to buy himself, a couple of hours of pain-free sleep.
Wow.
So endorphins are our body's endogenous morphine. They're our body's as a pain management system. and they are 30 times more powerful than the synthetic version, okay? So you can understand why laughter, and if you go into a lot of research, we'll be using clown doctors with children. And some of the most, I think, quite mind-blowing results have been these clown doctors that have been used to reduce anxiety in children prior to surgery or helping them recover afterwards. So there's quite a bit of research into that. And there's some really wacky research as well. Well, it's not so wacky, really. It's mind-blowing in that there was a Japanese study that even showed that regular laughter changes our genes.
Wow.
Wow. So there's some really fascinating research out there. But for all of us sort of citizen scientists, listening to your podcast, you will intuitively know how you feel after you've had a great laugh. You don't need to sort of have someone in a lab coat standing over you to sort of measure your blood pressure and measure what's going on. You just know you feel fantastic. Or like Lisa, with tears of that release. It's a big emotional release, which explains why it's such an incredible stress buster. And sometimes when it comes to people processing trauma or more challenging events, we can talk about these things, on and on. We can write about them. We can do all sorts of things, but it can actually take just a simple act like a laugh, a big belly laugh, to actually free some of those difficult emotions. You don't even think about it. It's just this release. So yeah, there's a lot, as I say, of physiological, psychological research out there, and certainly document some of that in my book. But it's a growing field and it's an emerging field.
Yeah. Something that I found interesting in your book, Ros, was thinking back to ancient times and the court jesters. I sort of thought about movies that I've seen depict those times, and it made so much sense. Getting someone funny in and calling for them, bring me my joy.
Yes. I can't remember the exact article, but just recently, King Charles, just recovering from whatever surgery it was, there was an article saying that he was actually looking for jokes that would make him laugh. So even in contemporary times, we've got royalty.
I love that.
Out laughter to help their well-being and healing.
But it does make a difference, doesn't it? And I guess that reframing when things go tough, and you talked at the top of our show about gratitude. When you can think of the things that do bring you joy, it can just reshape your thinking at that time.
That's right. And it leads to just a much more of an expansive thought process, and being able to meet challenges with levity, with a bit more rationality, and definitely helpful.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. When it comes to laughter, are there any specific techniques or practices that you might recommend to our listeners today that they could try if they're new to this, or if they just want to amplify that a little bit more?
Sure. So I'm going to just give you a little bit of a back sort of story into a couple of things which I will be proposing. One is that just in case your listeners think that I've never been touched by anything sort of remotely sad or challenging, I'm just going to say right out, that's not the case. So 11 years ago, I was actually diagnosed with bowel cancer. And I ended up having some pretty major surgeries at the time. So there's nothing funny about a cancer diagnosis, and certainly in the aftermath of the surgeries, physically I could not laugh for several weeks. Yet intuitively I knew, and also professionally I knew, that this idea of laughter was really good for well-being. So I think it's really important for people to, just like any well-being tool, that you have a lot up your sleeve. So, for example, if you are in physical pain, the last thing I'm going to do is recommend you watch a comedy, like especially if it's in your abdomen, like you just had a cesarean section, which is a good reason for surgery, or not so great reason, such as my own. So adding, you know, a component of smiling to your regular mindfulness practice. You know, that is something that I found really powerful, and just using that smiling energy, directing it to particular areas of my physical body that needed it. Then there a lot of sort of the way we feel is the language that we use. So again, it sort of touches on that reframing. Be mindful of the language you use. If there's something that doesn't feel right to you or empowering, reframe it. So I, for example, reframed the big C as the little c. I talked about when I had to have, I had a full bowel resection, and when I had the operation, it's called a bowel reversal, when they reconnect the bowel. And I thought, well, I don't want to go back to things the way they were. Reversal seemed like a bit of a negative connotation. I'm going to describe it as a bowel reconnection. I don't say things like chocolate to die for. It's like chocolate to live for. So there are many things we can do, but then there are the times when we actually need to activate our smile or activate our laughing. And one of the things, living in a big city like Melbourne, there are many opportune traffic light moments, I call them. So, stress is around us, and it's very common. We're running late for a meeting or seeing a friend or whatever it is, and we get stuck at another traffic light, another traffic light. And so rather than sort of keep on feeding that traffic light, think, hey, this is actually a moment for me to breathe, for me to smile, and maybe for me to even just laugh out loud, just for the sake of it. And the thing about laughter is it's quite a vulnerable act. So many people are, very sort of self-conscious about laughing in public. But if you are laughing in your car, a pedestrian or someone pulling up next to you is not going to know that they're just going to assume that you are laughing with a friend or something. So, if you're feeling a bit anxious, you're going to an appointment or something, just use that traffic light moment for 10 seconds, just like start laughing at yourself. Or waking up in the right frame of mind is really important. None of us know what the day ahead will bring, but by placing a heartfelt smile on our face first thing sends a cue to our brain that, hey, all is well, signaling those well-being hormones. And what it does also is it sends out that smiling ripple effect to whomever you then see. So if you don't take that moment to sort of place that heartfelt smile on your face, and you just get out of bed and it's like, oh God, I've got to get to work, and then you see your partner and it's like, you see your kid, So if you can it just takes a moment. Just set the tone of the day with a smile. Laugh at yourself in the mirror. Whatever it is, as I said, get into the habit of cheer scrolling rather than doom scrolling. Identify people in your life that you can call them your laughter buddies, people that you can share a laugh with. And the brilliant thing about technology today is it doesn't matter if they're not, if they're over the other side of the world. Just get that connection happening, get that FaceTime happening. And, we can even increase our humor quotient by seeking things that we find funny, keeping a humor scrapbook. Then having, going through that humor scrapbook when we're feeling a bit low, or adding to it, or creating a WhatsApp group with people to just share some, funny memes or whatever it is. So there are so many things we can do, but it really depends on how you are feeling, what your day is bringing. And I think that everybody is the expert on themselves as to what might benefit them the most, more of a cerebral process or more of a just let's get laughing. So, yes.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That just reminded me of a whole lot of things that I've got in my little package that I work with children with, but also of my own. And one of the memes that I loved, this was a few years ago, there was a you know, when you're on an aeroplane and there are people that are directing the aeroplane to get to where it needs to go. There was this one where I don't know what his title is. I'll just say this man anyway. He had his little sticks, but he was dancing the whole way along. Nobody can see me doing that, but just imagine. And it was the funniest thing. And again, that was one of those moments where I just laughed and cried and cried and cried because it was just so funny and so talented. And I've banked that now I've got a Jolt of Joy back of thing of resources, and I just love it. And I've got music as well. So if I need to pump the kids up, out comes something.
Oh, that's marvelous. I have to write Jolt of Joy. That's marvelous. Thank you for sharing that. I actually know that clip. It's a gem.
Hilarious. So I'll have to send it to you, Leanne, because it's very, very funny.
Oh, please do. I love a good laugh. And I am one of those that is a little bit embarrassed by their laugh because it is just a full belly, you know.
Oh, no, you don't be embarrassed. Let's unleash the laughter now. And this is something that listeners can actually do because sometimes we just need to let it out. And so this is just a really simple laughter practice we can do. If we just pretend that our mouth is zipped up, okay?
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Follow me, and we're going to unzip it with laughter, okay? Watch me, okay? You got to join in. Yeah. And zip it up, and then unzip it.
I'm afraid already.
Okay, zip it up.
Oh, I love that.
Shame we don't have a video. If you could just see your face.
Oh, I do love laughing.
Yeah, well, don't hold it back, please. It's so good for you.
We do it all the time. It's just priceless.
Okay.
Roz, thank you for filling our joy cup today. We would love to hear, besides your wonderful books, which we will be putting the links to in our show notes, do you have a book or podcast or TED Talk that you might like to share for our listeners that might be of value today?
I have a future TED Talk that I haven't done yet.
Oh, beautiful.
No.
It's just I have to do a TED Talk.
Do it.
So we have to put it out there. We're putting it out there. Listen, I've got, the couple of books. So the first book was Laughing at Cancer, How to Heal with Love, Laughter and Mindfulness. My latest book, which is being translated into 9 languages.
Oh, congratulations, Roz.
Yeah, it just shows that the world needs more laughter, is The Laughter Effect, How to Build Joy, Resilience and Positivity in Your Life. And my website's got lots of free resources, meditations, interviews, things like that. So, I'd love to hear from your listeners. So, yes, I'm on a bit of a joy journey and a bit of a laughter journey.
Thank you so much. And I love your book. I had it on audiobook, your most recent one, The Laughter Effect, and really enjoying all the stories that you have to share in there. It's really great. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
And thank you for putting it on to Audible because it really helps all listeners. So thank you very much for doing it.
Oh, that was my pleasure.
We're getting towards the end of our time together, which is sad in a way. So we can turn that around at the end. But we would really love to hear a little bit about a favourite wellbeing practice. And it doesn't have to do with laughter if you don't want to, but it's something that you do for yourself. We ask all of our listeners or our guests what they might do, and it just helps to fill the toolbox of our listeners.
So I'm a bit of a serial smiler.
Yeah.
I just share smiles. I absolutely love, it doesn't matter where I am. I've got much better at it, but literally just smiling at anyone and everyone that I pass. And initially I sort of thought I was doing it for them, but I realized, no, this is an exchange. And it's as I say, it is definitely something that feeds my well-being, and the knowledge that it might do something for theirs is obviously an added bonus. So what could be simpler? And that was, it was interesting, obviously during COVID and face masks, how that practice was challenged. But there's smiling it's not just from the lips, smiling is from the eyes. So when you smile at someone, I know it can also be vulnerable. And it's like, okay, there might be some people I wouldn't want to share a smile with in a dark alley or something. But on the whole, just meeting someone in the eye and sharing a smile, it's love. It's just love. It's an act of kindness, and it feeds our well-being.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. I remember many years ago, my grandmother said she had a poster on her wall. I think it was in the bathroom. That's what they used to do in those days. And it had something to do with when you catch a smile, you're actually giving it back to other people. So it's like it makes that ripple effect going out, that other people need your smile sometimes. So sometimes when you're seeing somebody sad or just on their own, perhaps it's alone, maybe there's a whole lot of other things, just smiling at them can make such a difference that we may never know. It's really important for others.
Absolutely, absolutely. A wise woman your grandmother must have been.
She was, and she was quite hilarious too.
Roz, as I'm not sure how I'm going to reframe this, as we come to the end, as we go on with our wonderful journey in life.
As we continue to giggle.
If our lovely listeners want to continue their journey with laughter or are curious to learn more, what's the best way that they would contact you?
Well, probably through my website, which you'll provide.
Yes.
There's an opportunity to subscribe to a newsletter, and I must get one out. You've just reminded me. Because then there's the contact. Otherwise, and they can email me otherwise, or send intuitive telepathic signal, probably not as reliable. LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, for better or worse.
Thank you so much, Roz. That was such a wonderful thing to talk about and discuss. And I think our listeners around the globe are going to really enjoy that from different perspectives as well. So thank you. Really, really appreciate our conversation with you today.
Oh, I've absolutely loved it. And I thank you so much for inviting me onto your fabulous podcast.
That was a great conversation. I really like it.
I feel so happy. I feel so good having had a laugh now.
I know. That was funny. It was funny, isn't it? When you first have to zip it and then open it up and start laughing. But as soon as you start laughing, that's the end of it.
I heard you laughing. I heard Roz laughing. I can't help but laugh. It was just, I felt silly, but it was fun.
There's so much research behind it all too, especially the endorphins and how it can really change your DNA in a way, that we're rewiring pathways to help us to think differently and more joyful, rather than that, what did you call it? Not thinking of the negative stuff and scrolling for all the, the bad things, but really looking for those cheer
scrolls? Was it
cheer scrolls? Yeah, look for cheer scrolls. What was the other? And being a citizen scientist.
Yes.
Looking at when those things are happening to you and you're having a giggle, starting to really tap into what's actually happening in your body. I love that.
I also loved how she said laughter is greedy for company.
Yes, all right.
And when you think about it, she talked about back in the early times with the jesters and everything. I remember reading the book or listening to the book and thinking, oh yeah, that makes sense. And in the book, they talk about how they would often call for them to, make them laugh.
Because back in those days, it was all about fighting and winning the war and, all those horrible things. And so that they'd make their jester, get the jester to make me happy. But what about the fact that laughter helps you to heal and to connect? How long have we been talking about, that connections are just so important, but they also can heal us, and laughter can do both of those.
Yeah, absolutely. And connections that are made through laughter, are
but
great.
also the impact it has on some who are not laughing.
Yes.
Not that you have to laugh all the time, but it's more, if someone's feeling a little bit down in the dumps about something, just a simple smile can change that.
Yeah. I remember one time sitting at the lights. It was an unhappy time for me, but I remember sitting at the lights, probably looking bit sad and sorry for myself, and looking up and seeing the driver in front of me in their side mirror. So I see them in their side mirror, and they smiled at me. And I immediately felt good. I'll never forget that feeling. But I also remember then going on, at that time I was, seeking some support. And one of my challenges was to have a conversation with people. And I felt very uncomfortable about that. So I was cheating. And how I cheated was, instead of talking to everyone, I was smiling at everyone.
It's so interesting that you think that that's cheating, when in actual fact you chose to smile.
Yes.
Which was probably a better option than not.
I had no idea back then what I was doing, but it's interesting now.
I know. And it just reminded me of Barbara Fredrickson. When you're feeling all of those physiological and psychological symptoms when you're smiling or laughing, is that it just brings so much joy, which helps you to be able to make better decisions, to be able to show up more, to actually have better conversations and to heal better. It's just such a great theory, and laughter can help that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, the cup is full.
Yep, certainly is.
Okay.
Okay. Have a wonderful day. No more giggling, because otherwise
I'll go and have a laugh. Bye.
Bye for now. See you guys.
And thank you for listening to the Imperfect Us podcast. As always, we are extremely grateful to our executive producer, Brenton Ainsworth, for helping us to put this episode together. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please share it with someone you care about, and we would be grateful if you could rate this podcast on iTunes. To continue the conversation and see what we're up to, you can connect with us on LinkedIn. Just search for Imperfect Us. Bye for now.